The title is Forming an Argument: How to Make Research Writing Argumentative. Now, when we look at the definition of argument, then argument is an ambiguous word. And what do we mean by a word is ambiguous, or a term is ambiguous when it has more than one meaning? So similarly, we have two meanings which are associated with this word argument. First word is very common when we say, I had an argument with my colleague, or I saw people arguing with each other. So this is an argument when you have a disagreement. That is one reason for argument. But here we are not concerned about this argument, and we are concerned about an act or process of arguing, reasoning, or discussing. And all these three things, arguing, reasoning, or discussing, they are associated with research writing. And when you write your review this semester, that is the starting of your research writing, and you will carry on this in the next semester. So we need to understand the nature of this word, and we can see that a negative connotation is also associated with this word, as well as a positive connotation. And here we are concerned with the positive connotation and not the negative connotation. Now, when we take into consideration a quarrel or disagreement, then generally we are taking into consideration an oral argument, whereas the second meaning is associated with the written research work. So you write a research and you make your research argumentative, you use reason, and you discuss things. At the same time, we can see that once we argue in a quarrel, or when we have disagreement, then generally we lost our reasoning. But when you conduct a research and when you argue, then it demands reasoning. So here we find that this word has different connotations, different meanings, but we are concerned with written research, we are concerned with positive connotation, and we are concerned with where research demands reasoning. But the question arises that why do people argue? So when we say why do people argue, then generally we are taking into consideration the oral argument in a quarrel, or when there is a disagreement. So we need to find out the function in an argument. That what is the function? Something is happening in front of you, and you need to find out what is the function, why something is happening. So here is a couple of examples in front of you. First example is a young woman wants a tattoo and argues with her mother, who forbids her from getting one. Now this example is an example of a quarrel or a disagreement. You can see there are a mother-daughter situation where mother forbids the daughter to get a tattoo. So again, this is one example, but it can be any example where one person wants something, but the other person wants something else. So this type of situation is there, something versus something else. At surface level, you won't be able to find out what is the function of an argument, or you will think that mother is being not reasonable, or you will think that the young woman is unreasonable. So these things will come into your mind. But if you take a perspective, then you will find that there is a possibility that a young woman, a daughter, wants to assert her independence through a tattoo. Now when you say that she wants a tattoo, tattoo because she wants to assert her independence. Then you are trying to find out the function in a quarrel, in an argument, in a disagreement. So this is your work. Once you read a novel, a poem, or anything, you need to find out that there are more than one voices. That is first thing. It's not a monologue like we have uh, examples of dramatic monologue or soliloquy. So we know that we have multiple voices here, and people when they argue, when they raise their voice, then there must be some reason and there must be some function. So here we have found a function to assert independence, and here we have taken into consideration the daughter's point of view. This is the starting point of finding out an argument. Now another example, first example is uh, related to the feminist studies or finding out identity or identity studies. Now, second example is altogether different. Sometimes students become so preoccupied with the format of essays writing, writing an introduction and a conclusion, they forgot the essay's main purpose. It must have something to say on a particular subject. Now, when you look at, you find that this is some instruction related to how you can write a better essay, and you need to have an introduction and conclusion. Uh, that is one thing. But at the same time, your essay must have something to say on a particular subject. So one is formatting we are talking about, and another we are talking about the quality that must be there in an essay. So there are two things that we are talking about. Now again, in such type of example, again, uh, when you are instructing someone, that means that thing is lacking, or you want them to remember this thing. So again, we need to find out that what is the essence of this entire thing, why a writer is writing this thing, why the writer is writing this instruction for the audience, for the students. So we try to find out, okay, content is more important than the format. So this is actually the essence of this entire thing, that why this is written. So again, when you try to find out that why something is written, why a sentence is written, why a paragraph is written, or what is there in that particular sentence or paragraph, again, that is uh, that is a starting point through which you can make your writing argumentative. So this is one step. This is first step, and you are analyzing a text, you are analyzing a work, you are writing a review. Then again, you can follow these things there. So what are the qualities of argument? Now here again, we are not talking about the quarrel or disagreement, but we are talking about argument in a research. So arguments are a dialogic. We are talking about a reasoning. A dialogic here means reasoning, and die means two. So you have more than one voice is heard in an argument. So it is not the case that you take one point that all men are bad. Fine, if you are taking into consideration the feminist point of view, or you are working on a topic, let's say someone is a rape survivor or rape victim, or patriarchy or violence, and if you take only one voice, then it is not dialogic. Then you must take more than one voice. So one if one voice is heard in an argument, then it is not a good argument, or you can say it is not an argument at all. Now, exchange of ideas with zero hostility. So this is again, you need to keep in mind that though you are a pro-feminist, you are supporting feminism, but you become hostile towards the entire man race, then again that is not good. So this is again a thing, an open mind as a researcher you need to keep once you exchange your ideas. Then we know that argument is the manifestation of democracy, because what is the beauty of democracy? In democracy, you have many voices, you have dissent, you have disagreements, but still everyone has a right to say something. So dissent is the enactment of difference. So you have this right to dissent. Then arguments create a dialogue with the text, because text is written by a writer or an author. And as Barth says, that author is dead. Now, what is the meaning of this phrase that author is dead? The meaning is that now the audience is responsible for the meaningfulness. They are not dependent upon the writer's view. So arguments create a dialogue, and when you say something contrary to what is there in the text, or you produce an interpretation that is quite different from the line of thought that is mentioned in the text, then what you are actually doing? You are creating an argument, a dialogue with text. At the same time, you need to think of that whether arguments or the argument I am putting, they are enabling me to say something new. So it should not be the case that you are saying the copy of a copy, a repetition of a repetition. Then we can't say that research is argumentative. So you need to think deeply, and you need to cross question yourself. You need to do a bit of introspection whether I am saying something new or not. So all these things, all these 7 points, you need to keep in mind. So these are checkpoints. So once you write something, once you develop an argument, you need to tick one by one whether these things are there or not. Now, when we talk about arguments, it is closely associated with discourse as well. Now, when we study discourse, then discourse is also associated with ideology. So we have different theorists like Bakhtin, Voloshinov, Medvedev. So what they believe that discourse is an expression of ideology. So this is one thing, that when there is a discourse, then that particular discourse actually expresses ideology. Now, ideology here you can consider perspective, what you take. So a feminist perspective is different ideology. Marxist perspective is different ideology. Capitalist perspective is different ideology. So likewise, you have different ideologies, and once you create an argument, actually you are expressing those ideologies. Ideology is a belief that you have, so you assert those beliefs through your argument. So Voloshinov and Medvedev examined discourse in relation to context and not as an abstract system of science, like linguist inspired by Saussure. So we have one line of thought by Saussure, that there is a sign, and a sign must have inherently a signifier and signified in it. And this line of thought is an abstract system we are talking about. So we have sign 1, we have sign 2, we have sign 3, we have sign 4, because we are not naming this sign. We are saying that every morpheme is a sign, and morphemes, they interact with each other. So we have words, then words, they interact with each other. We have phrases, clauses, and phrases and clauses, they interact with each other. We have sentences, and sentences, they interact with each other. We have discourse. So this line of thought we are not talking about. So we are not talking about abstract system. And what is opposite of abstract? Concrete. So we are talking about concrete. And where can we find this concrete? Voloshinov and Medvedev, they examine discourse in relation to context. That means something is actually happening. So something is actually happening where? Either in a form of a fictional text that you examine, or you conduct an interview, you observe a situation, or you collect data, or you collect newspaper headings. So all such things are actually discourse in relation to context. That means there is some relation. It's not simply an abstract system we are talking about. Now, particularly as because I know that most of you have taken novel as a work, so you need to consider novel as a discourse. So novel is not for some pleasure reading here, but novel is a discourse. And for Bakhtin, novel is the prime example of carnivalized literature. Now, this is a term given by Mikhail Bakhtin, carnivalized. Because like the medieval carnival, it is a site where orthodoxies are contested, satirized, and undermined. So you need some place, you need some site, so where you can mock upon, or, uh, or you can context against those orthodoxies, those superstitions, those beliefs. So you can satirize them. So where can this happen? This happen in novel writing, because in novel writing you have participants, you have characters, you have context, and things happen. You have different levels of settings. So novel can become a potential site for a discourse. So these are certain views on arguments and discourse that we have. Now when we study discourse and when we study the arguments, then it's also important to view to see the views on being and meaning. um, and Bakhtin's theoretical perspective is quite important here. And another term given by Mikhail Bakhtin is heteroglossia. Now hetero means multiple, and glossia means languages. So multiple languages of various social groups that a novel must be composed of. Now, though it's a novel, and let's say a novel, Pride and Prejudice, you will say it's written in English language. So where are multiple languages there? You need to consider that in Pride and Prejudice, you will find different social groups, different social characters. You will find different social settings. So when you have different characters, different social groups, different people, when they interact with each other, then the language is not same. They are using different languages. That means their idiolects, the individual variety of language is different. So we have heteroglossia, multiple languages in a novel. So that is one good thing that novel. Now, why Bakhtin says that novel is a discourse, or compares novel as a discourse. So for Bakhtin, being is always a process that necessitates constant dialogue with the world. So again, there are two words, being, and another one is becoming. Fine. So we all are human being, and we are in a process of becoming. But I cannot say that I have become this, and you also cannot say I have become something else. We are already human being, but we are always in a process of becoming something. But that something is not very clear, and there is not a possible answer that what a being will become one fine day. So that's why being is always in a process of becoming. So something is becoming, and when something is becoming, then something is not fixed. So I am not fixed, you are not fixed. The way you believe now, there is a possibility that next year your entire thinking will change. So our thinking process, our belief in ideologies, it is also always in a process. And because of that process, we have a dialogue with the world. So you can say that, okay, I'm not talking to any like any people. Like I'm quite happy with my Facebook, with my YouTube, with my Netflix account. I'm not talking to many people. So how can you say that being is always a process, or I am in a process of change? So your choices on Facebook, your choices on Netflix, you are not watching each and everything that is posted on Netflix. You select certain web series, you select certain movies. What is that? A constant dialogue with the world, because those web series, those things, They were created by something else, so someone else. Now, for example, you're writing a review in this, and you had this free choice to select your novel or text. Now, what is that? You searched and you found, okay, this is appropriate. This is what I like to do. Some might have a sense that, okay, this work is easy for me, this will be difficult for me. So again, what is this? This is a constant dialogue with the world. Those texts were written by different people from different nationalities, and what you are doing, you are selecting those things. So again, this is the meaning, like being is always a process that necessitates constant dialogue with the world. And what further Bhaktin says, that without interaction, it is impossible for an individual to have a sense of a self. Again, like once you have a dialogue with the world, then you realize, who am I? What is my worth in this world? So this is again, you make a difference between you and the other, and how you can make it irrespective of the fact whether you are physically talking to different people or not. So let's say you have a Facebook account and you have different friends. Now many people, many friends, they are sending you messages, but you reply only to 3 or 4, but not all. So again, why this selection? So without interaction, it's not it's impossible for an individual to have a sense of a self. So you have realized that what you are, and you find, okay, if I talk to these 3 or 4 people, then it will be beneficial for me. If I talk to all, then it is uh, it's tiresome, it's boring, monotonous. So this is again, you realize what you are, a sense of a self. So in isolation, you are sitting in a cave and doing meditation. It's not the case here, though you can also realize with that practice as well, that you are sitting in a cave and you are doing some meditation. Then you can also realize that who you are. But generally, when we live in a society, we interact with different people, and then we realize what we actually are. What is my identity? Fine. So your identity is like first your name, then what you do, from where you belong, what's your qualification. So at this stage, if you ask someone, okay, give me a job, what will be the possible reply? The possible reply will be, what's your qualification? You will say, I am masters. So they will say, okay, do some B.Ed first, or do some NET, or do some PhD, then come to me. So this is again what? Sense of a self. You will realize where I stand. What will I do? So this is again important when you read a work. So interaction is quite important in order to realize your self-worth, self-esteem, and the actual position where you stand. Then Bhakti also argues that being and meaning are continually redefined. So we have already discussed through a lifetime's dialogue with others. So each day I redefine myself. I should not have said this thing to that person. I should be more polite. I cannot be that selfish. I should be more helpful, or I will only think about myself. The word goes to fire. I don't bother. What all these things are? These type of thoughts when you have. These are your lifetime dialogues that you think. Okay, I only concerned about myself. I will not poke my nose in other people's business. So all these things are, you are again as a sort of argument that you have with yourself. So being and meaning are continually redefined, and every utterance is not only a response to a previous utterance, but anticipates a future response. So when you say something, it's not that A said this, B said this, A said this, B said this. This is not the thing. You in real life situation, no one is conducting your interview. So sometimes you say something because you anticipate the future response. So again, here it is a cycle. So here it is not like a linear A to B, B to A. That's not the case here. So every utterance is not a response to a previous utterance, but anticipates a future response. So again, a circle here that's there. And during argumentative writing, we are not damaging or diminishing text. That you need to keep in mind, that once you are arguing, because it is not a quarrel, it is not simply a disagreement, it is not an oral disagreement, but you need to think of that you are producing some knowledge, you are uh, you are engaging with the text. So you are not damaging or diminishing text, but producing their meanings, because they cannot exist in isolation. So a text cannot exist in isolation. You need to read it. You need to find what is there for me, not the already said meaning. That okay, certain people, they have paraphrased this poem, so this is now meaning for me. That is their meaning, those who have paraphrased it. But what is your meaning? So you need to find that what is my meaning that's there, that is associated with that particular text. And you can only do this thing when you are in argumentative writing. So I stop here, and if you have any question, you can write in the chat box, or you can ask me directly as well.